That's the most ridiculous, horrifying story I've ever heard. It's crazy.
Michael Jackson wasn't just a superstar, he was the king of pop. He changed music, dance, and even fashion forever. But behind the moonwalk and the magic was a man deeply troubled. From the pressure of fame as a child to battles with his family and the media, and then allegations of child abuse, Michael's life was full of secrets. Rumors followed him everywhere, and legal troubles never truly left him. But one mystery has haunted fans for years. And now, with new court rulings and never-before-seen footage coming to light, the story has taken a shocking new turn. What's been uncovered isn't just surprising, it's disturbing. Join us as we uncover the dark truth behind Michael Jackson's life, legacy, and the mystery that refuses to stay buried. It all started at Neverland. Michael Jackson was already one of the biggest stars in the world when serious claims about his private life first made headlines. In 1993, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler said that Jackson had behaved inappropriately. The alleged incidents happened at Jackson's famous home, Neverland Ranch, in Santa Barbara, California. The news spread fast. People all over the world were shocked. In January 1994, Jackson chose to settle the civil case for $23 million. Of that, $5 million went to the family's legal team. Jackson said he only paid to protect his career and avoid distractions. Later, he said he regretted settling because it made some people think he was guilty. Prosecutors didn't stop there. They took the evidence to 2 grand juries, hoping to file criminal charges. But neither jury moved forward. That meant no criminal trial happened at the time. Still, the public stayed divided. Some fans believed in Jackson's innocence. Others were unsure. But years later, a new family entered Jackson's world. And things would quickly take another turn. A second chance and a new friend. In 2000, Jackson met a young boy named Gavin Arvizo, who was battling cancer. Gavin was introduced to him by Jamie Masada, a businessman and comedian. Gavin's father, David, who was no longer living with the family, often reached out to public figures, asking for help with his son's treatment. Gavin had to undergo chemotherapy and lost his spleen and 1 kidney. Jackson and Gavin formed a friendship, and Jackson invited Gavin and his family to Neverland Ranch. Gavin later shared that Jackson made him feel happy during a tough time in his life. But eventually, Gavin said Jackson stopped reaching out. He said he felt hurt by the sudden silence. In 2002, Jackson invited Gavin to appear in a documentary called Living with Michael Jackson, created by journalist Martin Bashir. Over 8 months, Bashir filmed Jackson at home and in public. In one part of the film, Jackson and Gavin were seen holding hands. Bashir asked Jackson if he thought it was appropriate to have sleepovers with children. Jackson said he never shared a bed in that way. He explained that he would sleep on the floor while his guests used the bed. He called it a beautiful thing and said he had also shared space like that with other young actors, including Macaulay and Kieran Culkin. The documentary sparked a media storm. Many people didn't understand Jackson's words. Some even said his own children should be taken from his care. Jackson called the film dishonest and misleading. Gavin's mother, Janet Arvizo, also said the film twisted the truth. She hired a legal firm in London to file complaints against the broadcaster. Bashir defended his work, saying, "Here's an individual who is 44 years old, sleeping in the bed of children who have no biological relationship with him. I did not set out to ensnare him with a child." Jackson's team later released their own footage titled The Michael Jackson Interview, the footage you were never meant to see. Jackson said he felt betrayed by Bashir. Macaulay Culkin even appeared on Larry King Live to support Jackson. He explained, "Michael Jackson's bedroom is 2 stories and has 3 bathrooms. When I slept in his bedroom, you have to understand the whole scenario." Culkin added that Jackson just wasn't good at explaining things clearly. Despite that, the conversation around Jackson's behavior didn't stop. Gloria Gruber from Prevent Child Abuse, California said, "The fact that he sleeps with children who are unrelated to him is definitely a red flag and concern." Santa Barbara's district attorney, Tom Sneddon, explained that under California law, just sharing a bed without any clear harmful action was not considered a crime. But he still kept a close watch. The case is reopened. Just weeks after the documentary aired, the Los Angeles Department of Child and Family Services stepped in. Between February 14th and 27, 2003, they carried out a short investigation into Jackson and Gavin's relationship. A report from that time, which later leaked, said the officials didn't believe there had been any wrongdoing. But the story didn't end there. In June 2003, District Attorney Tom Sneddon reopened the case. Over the next few months, Gavin and his family were interviewed. In November, Gavin told police that Jackson had crossed the line during their visits to Neverland. His mother, Janet, said Jackson had not allowed the family to leave the property during that period. The grand jury later changed the timeline slightly, stating that the events they were looking into took place between February 21st and March 12th. Then came the big moment. On November 18th, 2003, police carried out a full search of Neverland Ranch. At the time, Jackson was in Las Vegas filming a music video for his single One More Chance. 2 days later, on November 20th, Jackson was officially arrested. He posted a $3 million bond and was released shortly after. Jackson made a public statement saying the entire situation was based on lies. He gave an interview on 60 Minutes where he claimed the police mistreated him and that he had injured his shoulder during the arrest. He strongly denied the accusations and said he was ready to defend himself in court. He made it clear he would not settle this time, like he had in 1993. A later investigation by California's Attorney General said Jackson had not been mistreated, but the road to trial had already begun. Charges, court dates, and chaos. On December 18, 2003, Jackson was officially charged with multiple serious counts. These included 7 charges connected to inappropriate behavior and 2 for giving alcohol to a minor. Then, on January 16, 2004, he appeared in court. Outside, fans waited for a glimpse of their idol. Jackson surprised everyone by dancing on top of his car and waving to the crowd. Some saw it as a bold move. Others thought it was strange, considering the charges. Then, on April 21st, a grand jury brought even more charges. These included conspiracy accusations involving child abduction, holding someone against their will, and even making threats. On April 30th, Jackson entered a plea of not guilty. If found guilty, he could have faced up to 18 years in prison. The case was huge. Cameras followed every moment. Crowds gathered outside the courtroom. Some supported Jackson. Others demanded justice. Even Donald Trump stepped into the conversation. In an interview with Larry King, he said, "I'm going to stick up for him because nobody else is, and I don't believe it." As Jackson prepared to fight the case, the whole world was watching closely. Every hearing, every interview, and every legal move became headline news. What happened next would stay in public memory for years. And the story didn't end there. Inside the courtroom drama. The trial of Michael Jackson began on February 28, 2005, in Santa Maria, California. Judge Rodney Melville was in charge of the courtroom. He didn't want media attention to get out of control, so he banned cameras and told both sides not to talk to the press. Jury selection was delayed by a week because Jackson was in the hospital with the flu. Leading the case against Jackson was prosecutor Tom Sneddon. Jackson's legal team tried to get Sneddon and his team removed from the case, saying they were biased because of the earlier 1993 accusations. But the judge didn't agree. Jackson's lawyer was Thomas Mesereau, a well-known defense attorney recommended by Johnny Cochran. The judge made a major decision during the trial. He allowed the prosecutors to bring up past claims against Jackson, including the 1993 case. They wanted to show that Jackson had a pattern of similar behavior. Prosecutors said Jackson used Neverland as a way to impress kids and make them feel safe, while also winning over their parents with gifts. They also claimed that after the documentary Living with Michael Jackson aired, Jackson and his team tried to keep the Arvizo family at Neverland and forced them to make a supportive video. On March 10th, just before Gavin Arvizo was supposed to testify, Jackson didn't show up to court. The judge said a warrant would be issued if he didn't arrive within an hour. Jackson came in 10 minutes late and looked very emotional. He later said he had fallen in the shower and hurt his lung badly. He also said this trial was the hardest time in his life and blamed false rumors for making things worse. The prosecution's witnesses step in. The prosecution brought several people to testify against Jackson. The first was British journalist Martin Bashir, who had made the famous documentary Living with Michael Jackson. Bashir sat in the witness stand while the jury watched the full film. But when the defense asked him questions, he refused to answer. Then came Jason Francia, whose mother had worked as a maid at Neverland. Jason said that when he was a child, Jackson had touched him inappropriately more than once and paid him money not to say anything. His mother had earlier accepted a settlement, reportedly for $2 million. She had also sold her story to media outlets. But during cross-examination, Jason admitted that in his first interview back in 1993, he said Jackson never touched him. He explained that he was just scared and didn't want people at school to make fun of him. Jackson's lawyer tried to show that Jason and his mother were influenced by prosecutors and were also chasing money. Then, former Neverland workers were called. A security guard named Ralph Chacon claimed he saw Jackson act inappropriately with Jordan Chandler in the 1990s. Another worker, Adrienne McManus, said she saw Jackson kiss young boys and touch them in ways that didn't seem right. She also mentioned seeing Jackson with Macaulay Culkin, though Culkin always said nothing wrong ever happened. The defense said these people were not trustworthy. They pointed out that both had sold their stories to the tabloids and had lied under oath before. Years earlier, they had sued Jackson for wrongful dismissal but lost the case. Jackson even proved they had stolen from him, and they were ordered to pay over $1 million. They had been caught selling stolen items and doing things that made their testimonies seem doubtful. Another housekeeper, Kiki Fournier, said the Arvizo kids behaved badly at Neverland. She said one of them even pointed a knife at her in the kitchen. She admitted that they often slept in Jackson's room, but also said she never saw him give them alcohol or saw them intoxicated. A flight attendant named Cynthia Bell said she never saw Jackson giving Gavin alcohol. She explained that Jackson didn't like to drink in front of his children, so she served him wine in soda cans. She said Gavin acted spoiled during the flights, but saw nothing unusual. Jackson's cook, Philip Lamarck, claimed he saw Jackson touch Macaulay Culkin inappropriately, but also admitted that he thought about selling the story to the media and backed out later. Another staff member, Jesus Salas, said he saw Jackson drink a lot and once saw some teens leave the wine cellar looking drunk, but he couldn't confirm if Jackson gave them the wine. The judge did not allow another security guard to testify because there wasn't enough support for his claims. Voices from the past and present. The boy from the original 1993 case, Jordan Chandler, didn't appear in court. He had left the country and had become legally independent from his parents. But his mother, June Chandler, did testify. She said that at first, she didn't want Jordan sleeping in Jackson's bedroom. But Jackson questioned her trust, saying, "You don't trust me? We're a family." Eventually, she gave in and let Jordan decide. Still, she told the court she had never seen anything wrong between them. She also said she hadn't spoken to her son in over a decade. Then came Jackson's ex-wife, Debbie Rowe. The prosecution thought she would help prove that Jackson forced people to say good things about him. But Rowe said she was not forced, and that the people around Jackson were the real problem. She called them opportunistic vultures who tried to take advantage of him. The prosecutors asked the judge to remove her testimony, but he allowed it to stay. Gavin Arvizo, now 15, also gave his statement. He said that after the documentary aired, Jackson started giving him and his brother wine in soda cans. He claimed Jackson showed them inappropriate material and acted wrongly with him on 2 occasions. Gavin also said Jackson told him that if men didn't take care of themselves, they might harm women. When the defense pointed out that Gavin once said his grandmother had told him that, Gavin said he wasn't sure. Gavin also admitted that he had once told his school that Jackson didn't do anything wrong. This created some confusion. Cracks in the story. Gavin's younger brother, Star, also testified. He said he saw Jackson behave inappropriately with Gavin twice. He said Jackson had exposed himself in front of them and encouraged them to act the same way. Star also said Jackson gave them wine, which he called Jesus juice, and showed them internet content that was not suitable for kids. But under questioning, Star's past came into the spotlight. The Arvizo family had once sued a department store, saying security guards hurt them. They received $152,000 in a settlement. But in that case, Star had said his parents never fought, which didn't match what he said later about his dad being abusive. He admitted he lied. This helped Jackson's defense. Star also said he hadn't been to Neverland since March 2003, but was shown a magazine from August of that year and said it was something Jackson had shown him. That didn't add up. Later, he even tried to take back some of his testimony. Janet Arvizo, the mother, was also called. Jackson's legal team showed that she had a history of lying under oath. She had committed welfare fraud and was later convicted. She had also told different stories in past lawsuits. One example came from the J.C. Penney case, where she said guards hurt her and assaulted her. But others said her bruises came from her husband. Witnesses also said that while she claimed to be trapped at Neverland, she was actually shopping and dining out. A welfare worker said Janet didn't report the money from the lawsuit when she applied for benefits. A paralegal said she lied to win the case. Even a newspaper editor said Janet tricked her into writing a story about Gavin's illness to make more money. Her own sister-in-law offered to help by raising blood donations, but Janet refused and swore at her. All of this cast serious doubt on her credibility. Every time a witness stepped in, more cracks began to show in the case. Famous faces defend Michael. Michael Jackson's defense team had more than 500 witnesses ready, but only a few made headlines. One was former child star Macaulay Culkin. He said he had stayed in Jackson's room many times between ages 9 and 14, but nothing inappropriate ever happened. Culkin told the court the claims were absolutely ridiculous and said his parents knew about the sleepovers and were never concerned. He later told Esquire, "I never saw anything. He never did anything." Wade Robson also defended Jackson at the time. He said he had stayed in Jackson's room during nearly every visit, but it was always innocent. They played games, watched movies, and had pillow fights. Brett Barnes, who met Jackson in Australia at age 5, said he also stayed in Jackson's room around 10 times. He denied any wrongdoing and was angry his name was dragged into the case. "It's not true," he said. "They put my name through the dirt." Comedian George Lopez testified too. He once gave money to Gavin's family when Gavin was sick, but later cut ties when the boy's father accused him of stealing. Lopez responded, "Tell him his father's an extortionist." Jay Leno also spoke in court. He had received calls from Gavin and thought the boy's praise seemed unusual. "I'm not Batman," Leno joked. He said it felt coached. Actor Chris Tucker gave powerful testimony, saying he had warned Jackson about the Arvizo family. He called them cunning and believed they were using Jackson. The court also discussed Jackson's 1994 settlement, but ruled it couldn't be used as proof. His lawyers said Jackson didn't want to settle, and that it was the insurance company's decision. In California law, such settlements can't prove guilt. The real test was still ahead. A long wait for a big answer. After months of arguments, stories, and statements, the case was finally in the hands of the jury. 12 people had to make a decision, and it wasn't easy. The jury took about 32 hours over 7 days to reach a final verdict. In their first vote, 9 jurors thought Jackson should be found not guilty. 3 still had doubts, but slowly they all came to agree. On June 13, 2005, the court heard the verdict. Michael Jackson was found not guilty on all charges. The courtroom was quiet at first, but then came relief. Some cried, some looked stunned, some smiled. Jackson had won the case. Afterward, the jurors spoke out. One said they found the prosecution story weak and full of problems. The timeline didn't make sense to them. For example, the claims were based on things that supposedly happened right after the documentary aired, at a time when the world was watching Jackson closely. Many jurors said they didn't find Janet Arvizo, Gavin's mother, to be believable. One juror said she even snapped her fingers at the jury and addressed them directly. The New York Times described her as rambling, incoherent, and at times combative. Another juror went as far as to say she seemed like a scam artist. One juror summed it up clearly: there wasn't a shred of evidence that was able to show us or give us any doubt in voting guilty. Another said, we expected better evidence, something that was a little more convincing. It just wasn't there. But the reactions were mixed. Right after the verdict, the man leading the case against Jackson, Tom Sneddon, spoke out. He believed that Jackson's fame and the media had affected how the jury saw things. He didn't agree with the outcome. Still, the jury made one thing clear. They had looked at Michael Jackson as a person, not as a celebrity. The jury foreman, a retired school counselor, said, we looked at all the evidence, and we looked at Michael Jackson, and one of the first things we decided was we had to look at him just as another person and not a celebrity. In the end, the court had spoken. Michael Jackson was found not guilty, and he walked out of that courtroom a free man. But the trial left deep marks. Fans, critics, and the media all had different views. And while the legal case was over, the public conversation was far from done. Life after the verdict. After the trial, Michael Jackson changed the way he lived. His lawyer, Thomas Mesereau, said Jackson no longer let people into his private space like he used to. He also said Jackson had become very careful about who he trusted because he felt like people were trying to use him. Jackson left the United States and moved to Bahrain as a guest of Sheikh Abdullah. His brother Jermaine later said the family had secretly planned to send him to Bahrain if he was found guilty, since the country didn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. at the time. Later, Jackson went to live in Ireland. He never returned to Neverland Ranch. He said the police search had ruined it for him. Even though he was cleared in court, the public accusations still followed him. In 2009, Jackson planned a big comeback. His concerts sold out, but he couldn't get any sponsors or merchandise deals. A judge later said that Jackson didn't earn a single dollar from his image in 2006, 2007, or 2008. That showed how badly the accusations had damaged his career. In June 2009, Jackson passed away at his home in Los Angeles due to a medical overdose. After his death, Martin Bashir told ABC News that he never saw Jackson do anything wrong. He said Jackson's life was unusual but not criminal. The FBI also released files showing there were no active leads or new evidence. In 2017, 4 jurors from the trial appeared in a true crime show called The Jury Speaks. They all said they would still vote to find Jackson not guilty because they believed there wasn't enough evidence. A new wave of accusations. In 2013, Wade Robson, who had defended Jackson during the 2005 trial, changed his story. He now said Jackson had abused him for 7 years when he was a child. In 2014, another man named James Safechuck also came forward and made similar claims. These new accusations led to the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, which focused on both Robson and Safechuck's stories. The film got global attention and started more discussions about Jackson's past. Then, in 2025, another documentary aired. It was called The People vs. Michael Jackson and was made in Australia. It used court records, unseen video, and interviews with over 30 people, including jurors, lawyers, reporters, and witnesses. The documentary looked closely at the 2005 trial and showed how fame, media, and justice all came together. Around the same time, new video footage came out. It showed Jackson's lawyers making a controversial statement during a court appeal. In the video, the lawyers argued that Jackson's companies were not responsible for protecting children. They made a strange comparison, saying the companies had no more duty to protect kids than an Olympic swimmer walking past a drowning child. The court didn't agree with that argument. One of the judges said that the companies played a part by bringing the children into Jackson's world and could have taken steps to keep them safe. Jackson's lawyers lost that round. The court ruled in favor of Robson and Safechuck, which meant their cases would go to trial in 2026. At first, both men's cases had been thrown out because too much time had passed since the events. But California changed its laws in 2023 as part of the Me Too movement. That gave them another chance to take legal action. Their lawyer, Vince Finaldi, said, "They could have warned the parents. They could have called the police." He believed Jackson's companies should have done more. Robson said his contact with Jackson was always managed by Jackson's team. He added there was knowledge that there was something weird going on, and nobody in the organization seemingly did anything about it. Safechuck also spoke about how Jackson often had children around him. He said, "It's hard to imagine being okay with the constant cycle of kids coming in and out. I can't imagine how they didn't know." New shocking footage raises questions again. In 2025, the follow-up documentary Leaving Neverland 2, Surviving Michael Jackson, was released. It focused on Robson and Safechuck's long legal fight. The documentary showed how their cases had been dismissed and later brought back to court. The new film showed courtroom video from 2023 that had never been seen before. The footage captured a heated moment in court where Jackson's legal team said the companies linked to Jackson had no legal duty to protect children who visited Neverland. Their exact words shocked many people. Lawyer Jonathan Steinsaper said, "An Olympic-trained swimmer can walk past a swimming pool and see a child drowning in it. And if there's no special relationship, he's allowed to walk past it." Robson and Safechuck's lawyers fired back. They argued that Jackson's companies didn't just stand by. They were involved from the start. They helped bring the boys to Neverland, gave gifts, and handled logistics. In the documentary, lawyer Holly Boyer said they picked up the child. They drove the child to the pool. They took his parents and put them in the other room. Their lawyer, Vince Finaldi, added, "They didn't do what a reasonable person would have done in order to protect these kids." The new law in California made all the difference. It allowed Robson and Safechuck to bring their civil lawsuits again, even after many years. As the documentary shows, both men are now preparing to face Jackson's companies in a trial scheduled for 2026. In one emotional moment, Safechuck said, "I'm imagining myself in trial, fighting for little Jimmy." Robson said, "If I get the chance to tell the truth on the stand, that's a win for me." The road to court has been long and full of setbacks. But now, with new laws and fresh attention, both men feel ready to speak, and the world is once again watching. What do you think will happen when the trial finally begins in 2026? Do you believe more shocking details will come out? Or will it all be put to rest? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.